48.
I see Showbot.
Showbot. Oh, that's me. I do that. It only shows up when it's live.
I don't like it when we don't have the event because it has to start cold.
Yeah.
And when there's an event, people are usually there already waiting. So I currently see 0 eyeballs. Give it a few seconds. 23. Okay. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening, everyone.
Display.
You know what I haven't done in a while? I haven't looked to see what was that?
Weather. Krenoff.
Good news. There's weather.
80.
Patreon, thanks. We've got quite a few people.
16.
Good morning, everybody.
I'm doing math.
We're just getting ready here, getting some sales.
$64.
We're a little late getting the guild sales up. 64. Happy QOS to everyone. Good morning.
Thankfully, somebody asked me, hey, when's the sales going live? And I'm like,
oh, that's right.
It's Friday. What?
Yeah, we're a little behind. Nicole had something to do at school this morning, and I
Through
had to deal with
everything.
both kids. You know, when a dad has to deal with all the kids by himself, the world falls apart.
Hey, it's good. It's good.
Is it good?
It's very good for you to understand what I go through.
No, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Okay,
You don't
yeah,
think it matters.
crazy weather in Denver, right? We had 80 degrees 2 days ago. Then we had a nice about 4 inches fell, and then today it's still freezing cold. With a little bit of snow, but it's going to get up there in temperature again soon. I think I'll be wearing shorts this weekend.
16, 80 minus 16, 64. All right. All of the 4 projects are on sale.
Okay, so you want to get started with the show?
Let me hit update.
John Riggs is cold too.
I'm not. I'm like
Well, I got the heat on in the shop.
running around all over.
Yeah. I could talk. I could do a heater update because I've actually got a little bit of information about how the mini split is doing now that it actually got a little bit cold.
So if you're wondering what I'm doing, talking about sales, the guild, we're doing weekend sales.
Why don't we wait to announce it?
Oh, sorry.
In the show.
Okay, we should probably do that.
Want to get started then?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, it's Friday Live. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're going to talk about woodworking. We've got some questions pre-selected from Patreon, and we've got some announcements, like the guild sale that's coming up.
Coming up, it's here.
Well, that's today. We're in the midst of it. We're in the 11th week, I guess, if it's 12 weeks until Christmas.
Right, yeah.
So if you want to help out the show, get your questions on the show sort of pre-selected, you could do that by heading over to patreon.com.
Right. Oh, sorry.
You need to put your microphone on, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Patreon.com/woodwhisper is where you can do that. And I'd like to thank a few folks who did just that. We've got Michael Lusk, Jack Spann, Judith Grass, Thomas Hamlin, AJ Freeberg, and Cash Clemens. So thank you, folks.
Cassius Clemens.
Nope, Cassius Clay. So thank you so much, folks. We really appreciate the support. And if you want to do that too, again, that's patreon.com/woodwhisperer. Also want to send out a thank you to everybody who jumped on the mugs.
Oh,
My
yeah.
mom says we sold out. So the WFC mugs are gone. My mom really appreciates it.
Unfortunately, I'm not using one. I'm using
you're not. A big flowery old lady mug. It's beautiful.
I used to, at my old job,
Do you put that down on a doily?
This was my soda cup. They had free soda at my old job.
Yeah.
And I would just fill this
soda
up.
out of that?
Yeah.
Jeez, that's
so
hardcore.
yummy.
That is hardcore. My mom says thank you. TWW mom says big thank you to everybody. Now she doesn't have to move those mugs to New Jersey.
Let's just hope none of them break in transit because she has none to replace
Yeah, there's
them with.
not many to replace, I guess, huh? Well, that's crazy. So real quick, the sale announcement on the woodwhispererguild.com. 12 weeks till Christmas sale. This weekend, we are having, what's the theme? Bookcases?
The theme is things that hold books.
Stuff that holds books.
So the Barrister bookcase, the 1 and 2 sheet bookcase, the Krenoff inspired display stamp, because you can put a book on there, and the wall hanging cabinet.
Okay.
Technically, we're using it for toilet paper, but you could use it for books. So,
TP and tampons. That's what goes in that cabinet. Right, Nicole?
Yes, it does.
Are you going to get red now?
Probably. So the sale will be going until Sunday. Probably Monday, knowing this guy, he'll forget to take it down.
I'll forget all about it.
So There you go,
what I do.
20% off if you bundle those pre-orders. If you decide to get all 4 of those projects, the discount will stack
Yes.
on top. So, on top.
Stack it on top, baby. So I'll give you a little update on the heater. So it's been had a bit of a cold snap here in Denver, and
What? You don't say? I'm looking at snow out the window.
you don't say.
You don't say?
It's been like what 20s for
It was-
early mornings.
It was 15 degrees this morning when I went to pick up those pancakes.
Pretty flippin' cold.
Yeah.
So in the shop, I now have my Mitsubishi mini split installed, and it's working, but it is all the way on one side of the shop. So in order for this to get all the air over, I usually turn the fans on, which is something I would do, even last year, just to kind of mix the air a little bit. If the heat decides to rise, then I can kind of help distribute the air a little bit better. And what I found so far is if I start cold, which is a habit of mine, I usually turn the heat off completely when I leave the shop in the afternoon. If I start cold, that heater will have trouble getting the room up to temperature. It'll take a long time. I guess it can do it, it's just going to take a while. So I think my plan, which was originally to get rid of one of my big power hog electric heaters, keep one, and only use that to kind of spike the temperature up a little bit so that other heater, the mini split, doesn't have to work as hard. And that seems to be like a solid plan at this point, because once I do that, I can turn the big electric ones off, and then that guy can maintain the temperature with no problem. The alternative would be to just let that other one run overnight, let it keep the temperature from getting too low, and then in the morning crank it up a little bit. So I'm not sure what is more efficient in this particular space.
It's exciting stuff.
Look, people, it's winter.
I
It's
know,
cold.
I know.
You should be excited about it because you are not cold right now.
That's true.
And if you were, you'd be a lot more concerned,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Think about what you just said. Think about it.
I would be wearing a coat.
Yeah, and complaining. Okay, so we want to get to some questions?
Yeah, speaking of cold, James Cluster just said, Mark, do you have a concrete slab? Do you insulate the floor?
Oh, people must be interested in this topic.
I guess. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right. You're right.
Okay, I do not insulate the floor outside of having most of the floor covered with my rubber flooring. So that might provide some insulation, certainly, because it's like it's over a 1/4 inch thick of solid rubber, made from recycled tires. So maybe that provides some insulation, but it is not there for that purpose. So I don't know. How much insulation does a thick rubber tire material provide? I'm not sure.
Will Hooper said, second option is your best option. Just like AC, don't ever turn it off to just adjust temperatures.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that my gut tells me that's going to be the most efficient, or I should say my brain tells me it's the most
It's like
efficient.
medicine.
My gut tells me.
In pain.
Kind of, yes. Don't let it get too bad.
Don't let the pain get ahead of the pain.
But I think it's my mom, raising us over the years, where we'd huddle together in one room next to the air conditioner, even though we had multiple air
or the
conditioners.
space heater.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's that side of my brain that says, oh, just shut it down at night.
Right.
Why heat a room that you're not in? But when you take the whole room into account, all of the air cavities in the walls, the cabinets, the tools themselves, all of this stuff gets cold. So then ramping up the heat and trying to heat up the entire room
It's
is
like
actually,
an oven,
It's really difficult, yeah.
Like when I'm baking pies,
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
know how that's related.
I
but
made a chicken pot pie.
You just leave the oven on all day, just in case you want to
Well,
cook
no,
something.
if I'm cooking something
Oh,
later,
I wanna
like
make a pie.
cookies and.
Good thing the oven is still on. Well, there are some times where you just leave the oven on, especially with the old oven, where it would seem like that was the kind of policy you adopted.
Yeah. That's what I'm gonna stick to.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get to some questions on Patreon here. Our good buddy Chris Calnassi says, Mark, I was doing a glue up yesterday that required blue painter's tape. It was a pentadecagon, 15-sided polygon bowl, overachiever, with equal miter cuts. The tape is basically the only good solution I know of. I pre-finished everything with tried and true, then I found out that tape doesn't stick to the surface when there's tried and true on it. Is there any other option in my scenario, either a different glue up method or tape that would have held? Maybe have Dougie stand on it. You could probably put it in Dougie's mouth. He might be able to fit that. You could probably try regular masking tape. Maybe you get a little bit more of a stick. You also could try waiting until the tried and true is a little bit more cured. Once that stuff is cured, it will take tape a little bit more like regular raw wood. I think you may have just done it too soon. So try regular masking tape or try waiting longer. Also, of course, try different finishes. Other finishes will not take as long to cure and will respond better to the tape. You also might try rubber bands, those band clamp setups where you kind of crank them down and you have a fabric strap that goes around, things along those lines. But even rubber bands might be something that could be helpful, but it really depends on how easy it is to put together. You may also do like a combination of things. Use tape to just kind of get the pieces together in position, and even if the tape starts falling off, if you're backing that up with rubber bands or something like that, or some kind of strap around it, then the tape can fall off and it won't matter. You just kind of use that tape as a temporary solution.
Joe Clemmer, our friend Joe.
Joe!
Introduced you to your
You know what I'm going to call him from now on? Spicy Joe.
Spicy Joe.
That's my Spicy Joe.
He just did a super chat and said, "Cold weather coffee fund." Ain't that the truth?
Man, this morning, again, another kid morning. Too many kids in the bed, too many dogs in the bed. I'm up at 4:30 because I got Mateo's head like smacking me on the underside of my chin and pushing in my Adam's apple.
Yeah.
And then he grabs a pillow,
Yeah.
doesn't realize his sister's in the bed, and just throws the pillow on her head and proceeds to go to sleep.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, dude, get off your sister's head. And I'm like, it's 4:30. I'm gonna get up.
Yeah.
So XL coffee for me this morning.
Yeah. Well, normally I take Ava back up to her bed when she comes down. I was so out of it. I didn't even know she climbed into bed. So.
Rich says, never too many dogs in bed. I don't know about that, man. If you add 2 kids on top of those 2 dogs, then it gets a little
Especially
rough.
Dougie and Millie when they toot.
Yeah, I don't mind
That's
it so
too
much.
many.
I kind of like it. There's a comforting feeling when I smell
Dog farts.
a dog fart. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Okay, let's get to another question.
Sure.
AJ Freeberg says, do you have any tips for gluing up thin panels? I'm making a chest set from pre-cut parts from PSI, I guess Penn State Industries. And the board pieces are an 1/8 inch thick walnut and ash. I'm planning to use some plywood as a backer for added strength. I could just tell you what I usually do for this. So first of all, tape. We just talked about that, right? So I've glued together edge-glued veneer using blue tape as you sort of spread it across the joint and stretch it. And then when you pop it down, it provides quite a bit of pressure, a surprising amount of pressure. But if that's not enough and you really want clamping pressure, my suggestion would be to look at the type of clamps you use. The Bessie and Jet clamps, those can be okay, but I find that the ones that have the most effective grip at the very tip of the clamp are things like the Bessie I-beam clamps, traditional Jorgensen pipe clamps, the one that you just kind of screw on the end of a long piece of pipe. Those provide a lot of good clamping pressure down at that tip, so you could just lay all your stuff flat and you can catch that edge. And then your biggest trick then is to weigh it down so it doesn't buckle up under that pressure. So get some bricks and put those on top or something heavy to keep those panels from falling apart. That typically will work pretty well.
Got a question here from Andrew McKillop.
Sure.
Sorry. Hey, Mark.
McKillop.
Mark, thinking of building an exterior door out of
don't do it.
walnuts. What should I keep in mind for wood movement expansion? How do you seal the raised panels? Didn't you do a raised panel thing in Arizona?
A video on raised panels,
Yeah.
but if you're doing a door, you should just, the wood movement issues should be built into the design. I assume you're talking about raised panels. We're talking about a raised panel, frame-in panel design. Wood movement is part of that equation. The panel will float. It'll have room to expand and contract. The frame won't move very much, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So wood movement should be under control. As for the panel, well, you could always just pre-finish your parts. Keep the finish off the joints, but you can certainly pre-finish your panel, pre-finish your rails, your stiles, get all that stuff done, and then glue it together, and then clean up the squeeze out. That's what I would do. And this way your finish goes all the way under the grooves where your panel goes into the grooves. If there's any shrinkage or anything, it won't expose an unstained or uncolored, unfinished part of that panel. So pre-finishing, that's really the key for that one. Let's see. So we got Kevin Windsor. He says, I've been asked to build 2 kitchen bar stools. I'm thinking of a seat similar to the Maloof Rocker, but not as wide. Rear legs similar as well, but a lot taller, intersecting with the seat, as in the rocker. Above the seat, the rear legs will continue only high enough to join with a lumbar support similar to the Maloof crest rail. No spindles or arms. Before I reinvent the wheel, have you seen plans for a stool or a high chair with a saddle seat? You know, I really haven't. I mean, I may have seen it, but I don't know if they had plans associated with that. I know there's a Maloof, is it a stool? Or the bow tie stool? Something. There's a Maloof project that you might see other people who've made the Maloof Rocker may have made instructional videos on how to make that other type of Maloof style chair. That might be something that could give you some clues or tips on things you might be able to do, but outside of that, I don't really have a good suggestion.
I got a question here from James Custer. Mark, do you have a concrete, oh, we already did that one, sorry. Mason, how are you liking, I don't know what is going on with that. How are you liking the new Veritas planes?
I like them. I actually answered this in our meeting last night.
Was it last night? And the guild meeting too, right?
Well, it was the watch party last night.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about it, and probably in the guild meeting.
Yeah.
I like them. I think the Lee Valley, the way I look at it is you can't go wrong with either brand. If you're at that price point of Lee Nielsen and Lee Valley, you can't go wrong. I mean, honestly, look at which one looks the best and pick that one if you're trying to choose. But I do think that the Veritas have some nice little creature comfort features, and the PMV11 is the real deal so far. So I got to get more sharpening under my belt before I can give like a more thorough review to that. But it's good stuff. I like the PMV11 steel. Okay, Robert Randall says, let me preface this by saying I am not at the level where I could be a contributor. What do you look for when deciding on guest instructors for the guild? With all the content creators out there, I am sure there are many who would love the opportunity. That's an interesting question, Robert. I don't want to make a blanket statement about this, but the fact that someone is a popular content creator at this stage in what we're looking for in the guild actually will work against them. Part of the reason is the fact that the person already has a platform in which that they can put content out and saturate the market with their face. I really, if I'm holding true to my personal mission statement for what the guild will be, my goal is to find people who don't necessarily have a strong content presence out there, people who you wouldn't normally hear from. And consistent with that thinking are the sales. And some of our best-selling projects are from people who don't necessarily produce regular content online. They might have social media accounts and things like that, but they're not necessarily doing YouTube videos. Those are the ones that are performing the best. So it's told me that guild members are most interested in hearing from people who are at, let's just say a higher level of actual woodworking production, people who have made a name for themselves in the industry, not because of content, but because of their furniture. Those are the kinds of people who we're going to most likely seek out in the future. Let's see. I got a couple more. I don't know if you want to jump in.
I'm answering questions that are coming in on the website.
Yes.
So I'm
Okay.
like.
Kyle Schmidt wrote in. He says, in the simplest way, when do I use an upcut or downcut spiral bit in my plunge or table router? Maybe it's my dyslexia, but I can't wrap my head around this. I understand the point that these bits, the point of the bits, but not properly utilizing them. Okay, so I hope you understand that when you have an upcut bit and you're plunging down into the wood, that the grain is sort of going to be going up. The directionality of the bit is upwards, which could lead to tear out, right? So that basic understanding of an upcut bit pulls the wood chips out and possibly, which leads to actually, less friction and a cooler bit because more of the dust is coming out. But it also may wind up with a little bit more of a frayed edge around that mortise that you're creating. A down spiral does the opposite. Everything is going downwards. So you get a cleaner cut at the edge, but you're also pushing a lot of that dust and everything down into the opening that you're creating. So once you understand how those two work, now you just have to understand the orientation of the bit in the tool. So when we talk about upcut and downcut, think about handheld routers, right? That's the home base that you want to get your mindset into. In a handheld router, an upcut spiral bit is going up. It's going toward the motor. And a down spiral will go downward toward the work. So in a router table, all we're doing is flipping the router upside down. So even though the router's upside down, the rule still stands. An upcut goes toward the motor, which to our orientation as we look at it is now down, right? So you just have to think about what you're cutting, where you want the tear out to be if there's going to be any, and what tool you're using, and you should be able to kind of orient yourself and figure out which one you need or want to use. Now that said, pretty much everything I have is an upcut spiral bit. Why? Because upcut spiral bits cut really damn clean. So theoretically, yes, the edge might have a little bit of a tiny fray to it, but I've cut through mortises with them, and I can't tell the difference when I look at that edge. As long as it's a fairly clean, new bit, it'll perform just fine. And I get the added bonus of less friction, less wood chips and dust in the cut, which ultimately results, in a better, I just get a better result out of it. So I have almost no down spirals in my shop at this point.
Frank, is it Veritas?
Fritas?
Veritas? For air mess, for bully, fart stink.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Get those charcoal carbon.
It is hilarious, too, how they have distinctive odors.
Yes.
Like last night, I'm sitting on the couch, and I had a back-to-back Dougie fart followed by a Mateo fart. And they all have a signature smell. Like, I can tell a Mateo fart from a mile away. And also a Dougie fart.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
Oh, my God, that's so funny.
Okay.
Tim JB said, after all the talk about waiting for Matt's spice boxes, I'm surprised you forgot to mention he's finally finished.
It's just, it's a non-story at this point, right? Yeah, he
Matt
is finally
is done.
finished. Good for Matt. He can finally move on to the next thing.
Oh, and we should probably mention the under workbench cabinet goes out of pre-order today.
Yes.
So if you are interested at all at that.
that. It's actually right here.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
And no one can see it.
No one can see it.
Yeah, so the under cabinet workbench, that's the one that I'm designing for the Rubo, but can actually go in any workbench, really. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that. It actually reached temperature and the fan shut off.
Very good.
So we're doing okay. That guy is still on pre-order through today, and then after today, it will go up to full price. So go to the Woodworkers.
Yeah,
if you're interested in that.
Bundle 3 projects together, the under workbench cabinet is $39.
Yeah, everything gets cheaper when you bundle, baby. Let's bundle.
Bundle it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is from Chum Chum. Can I make a wooden shed on my patio, tile flooring into a small workshop? I believe I saw Chum Chum come in. He's in South Africa.
Well, Chum Chum, this is not a great question for me because I'm definitely more of a furniture maker and not a builder in that broader sense. I'm going to say anything's possible.
It's in Johannesburg.
Johannesburg.
Or Johannes. Is it Johan or Johannes?
I would say Johannesburg.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat room.
Somebody with building experience, but I also think anyone who was going to answer that adequately needs probably photos and more information.
A wooden shed on my patio, tile flooring. I don't know. Because the weather, I'm assuming, is...
as long as it's weather sealed and you can get power if you need power.
Yeah.
And then you have, protection from theft and all that stuff that you have to be concerned about. If it's a dry shed, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
But if there's structural issues or things like that you might be concerned about, that's a bigger picture question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matthew Baus, he always tells me it's Baus like house. He does our show notes.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew.
I just wrote to him the other day.
He said, have you ever experienced condensation problems on your tools in the morning?
Not in Denver.
Not in Denver.
It's
super dry here.
Too dry here for condensation.
Like my hands, lotion.
It's really dry, and I also don't let the shop get that cold. Ultimately, we have a water line that runs through here that has several repair spots and patches on it. It's the irrigation line. I don't know why it's here, but it's in the garage. And I can see that prior to us living here, someone did let it freeze a couple times and had some nice surprises come spring. But fortunately, we haven't had anything like that since we moved in because I never let it get anywhere near freezing in here. So one way or another, I heat it up.
One way or another.
Okay, Matthew Lay says, what's the best way to apply hard wax oil to small pieces the size of a keepsake box with awkward curves? By hand with a small white Scotch-Brite applicator. So I buy it in a big box. They come in sheets that are about this big, and you can cut that into 8 applicators, and you just grab a little piece, dip it into the schmutz, rub it in, and you're really rubbing it thin. You want to spread it thin, make it go a long way. Once you fully coat the piece, and you come back with dry paper towels or dry cotton cloth and just wipe off the excess. Use a lot of elbow grease, really buff it in good, You can also use a clean Scotch-Brite after you fully apply it. Come back and use that to buff it in the surface even more, and then follow up with that, with a clean paper towel to wipe off the excess. I've done that on pieces that it just was like, I don't feel like, bringing the buffer out. I may use a hand-applied technique on this cabinet, at least on the inside, where it's a little harder to get to and there's more obstructions. So very easy to apply by hand, though. I did that. If you want to take a look, I'm trying to think, the jewelry box for Ava that I did recently, and when I first started, I think first time I used OSMO was the drill bit storage cabinet, which is a project on the free site. Check those videos out. Those are videos that I actually used a hand technique to apply a hard wax oil.
Got a question here from, Armin FPB. Do you do your finish before a glue up or after?
Both.
Say after a display case, you're needing to glue up the top and the bottom frame into the base.
Both. It depends on the project. If it really makes sense to pre-finish, then I will. If there's a really major convenience factor, such as the inside of a cabinet with lots of compartments, those are some things that would be nice to pre-finish. But it really depends. And a lot of times, because I'm filming what I do, there's a story that's being told when we're building. And sometimes it just feels really awkward to, while maybe 3/4 of the way through the build, I stop everything and start talking about finishing. To me, that's a weird, abrupt change to the story, and sometimes I just go through, get to the glue up, and then finish, because it just makes a little bit more sense when we're telling that story. So sometimes you may see me not pre-finish in a situation where if I were just building for clients with no camera, I might have pre-finished, which might be counterintuitive since I'm trying to teach people the best methods possible. But my mindset sometimes when I'm in a building mode, it's kind of hard to just stop that and talk about finishing and worry about getting a perfect finish when I'm still doing building stuff, Okay, my last question that I have here is from Spicy Joe.
Spicy Joe.
He says, Mark, pardon the length of the question. Have a request for a TV stand cabinet. Center shelf is 24 by 19, 3/4 inch ply edge banded to hold a massive center speaker, 30 pounds. Question, your thoughts on preventing sag on the center shelf, potential noise induction and isolation techniques that could be used. Well, noise reduction, that might be a little bit tricky. There are certainly things that you can do to kind of line the interior, with material that would be sound absorptive. And you may also put those little isolation feet. A lot of times you can get those for subwoofers that help isolate a speaker from the thing that it's sitting on. At the very least, this is what I do with mine. I've got some insulated foam that I had left over from the ceiling. That's just to absorb sound. And I grabbed a thin piece of plywood and attached it so I had something nice and firm. And I set my speakers on top of that. And that way it's kind of close enough, isolated from the thing it's sitting on. So I created this little platform for it. So that may be something to look into. As far as support, there's really no way around it. You either support it or you don't. You could probably put wider edge banding on this thing to help. You might even put cleats across the shelf on the underside to help support it even further. Of course, if you have a back panel, making sure that the back of that shelf is secured into the back panel, that might require you to make a thicker back panel that you can then dado or groove all the way across. Put that shelf in there, that will certainly help. And then if all else fails, you put a divider below it or something that either makes contact with the next level or contact with the floor, depending on which shelf we're talking about here. But you just need that support there, one way or another.
I got a question. Got lots of questions.
Okay, because I'm done.
Let's see. Stumptown. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, I gotta go in order. Brett. Peckinpah. Peckinpah? Is there any reason why all leg vises are always on the left side of the bench? Due to dust collector position, I need to put it on the right side.
It's a handedness. Not all of them are. People who are left-handed generally are going to build a mirror image of the bench that you see here. The reason is just the planing mojo. You want to plane into the vise, not out of the vise. So if you had a board, let's say you're doing an edge jointing operation, You would generally, as a right-hander, I would go to a workbench, I would pop it into the leg vise across my bench, and then I would plane this way across the bench into the leg vise. If you're planing out of the leg vise, that's the weak direction. Getting a little too close, huh? Planing out of the leg vise is the weak direction. When you plane into a leg vise and you have that end of the board in the vise can sometimes skew a little bit. And that skew works in your favor because the board just can't go any further in. You certainly could, with enough pressure, pull it out. That said, there are people like Philip Morley, which was funny because his mentor was left-handed. And I guess his mentor left town or something like that and said, build a bench. And Philip just kind of copied his mentors. Mm-hmm. So now Philip has a left-handed bench. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. So there's a bunch of different reasons, why people might go one or the other. But it's funny when one is like accidental like mm-hmm. that. But ultimately, the reason you see it that way is because functionally, it makes the most sense, ergonomically makes the most sense for people.
Question here from Troy. Morning, Mark. I'm in the process of building countertops for the kitchen and I'm doing an acrylic finish. What are your thoughts, or do you have another maybe cheap finish idea?
All of my finishing ideas are expensive. Yeah, there is no cheap finishing idea.
Cheaper, I should say cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, there are cheaper solutions out there, but they may not be better.
And you're just going to be redoing it anyway,
possibly,
right?
Yeah. I mean, and if you want something less expensive, it's something that also would require more maintenance. So if you wanted to go with something like, a big gallon of boiled linseed oil, right? Mm-hmm. You wanted to do a classic oil and wax finish. You could do that, but it's not going to be that protective, and you're probably going to have to reapply it. But some people want that look. They want that more natural matte finish, and one that can be easily repaired if it's required. So do I have a more cost-effective solution? No, but I have more expensive solutions that you might go with.
I almost feel like there needs to be like a grid, like an Excel spreadsheet of like one column, the one column is affordable, expensive, and then maintenance on the top.
Yeah.
And graph it.
Inverse sort of relationship.
Graph it all out and find your happy medium.
I think you should get started on that right away.
That's okay.
Right away.
No.
Get on it.
Sure, somebody's watching might want to do something.
Yeah, but the problem is a lot of this can be subjective too. It's a trick. Finishing is one of those things.
Because it does matter where you are, right?
Interior, not really. Exterior, certainly. Interior is not as big of a deal. Given most of our homes are conditioned in some way.
Gotcha.
But but it's also a lot of personal preference and what I think of as a protective finish versus what someone else does, or what I dish out to a countertop versus what another family would.
Fist bump Fred, he said, I just wanted to reaffirm your conclusion from the guild meeting as someone who has in the past installed epoxy lining in heating oil tanks. Cutting it out of your hair is the way to do it.
Nice. Yeah, definitely cut it out.
Yeah, cut it out.
Yeah, you're not going to save it. Cut it out. Okay, what else we got?
Got a question here from Stumptown Woodworks. For a starting sharpening system for chisels and planes, would you suggest stones? And if so, are there 2 or 3, however many that are enough to get by in the beginning? The Shapton set, right?
Yeah, I usually recommend the Shapton set, but if you're just starting out, you can get a 2-sided water stone that'll give you like 1,000 and 4,000 or 1,000 and 5,000, something like that, 2,000, 8,000. Those double stones are a great bang for the buck. And I think that's all you need. Sometimes you might need something lower if you need to reset a bevel, so your grinder can do that, sandpaper can do that. But I think a basic 2-sided stone is probably a good place to start. At some point, you may want to get a little more into it, and you may wind up selling that stone to get a 3-piece set of individual stones if you're going into Shapton. You could keep that stone and then just add a third later when you're ready. You can get up to 8,000 grit. What I have generally, what I use the most is 1,000, 5,000, 8,000. And then I have a strop if I want to get like kind of kooky with it. But yeah, I think a 2-sided, double-sided water stone is a real good place to start. If you're more budget conscious and you just want to get things sharp, Google Scary Sharp and you'll find out how to use sandpaper to get a pretty decent finish.
Scary Sharp.
And the thing is, look, you don't need laser accurate razor tips on all of your tools to get the job done, right? We can survive on a 2000 grit chisel. Yes, we like to refine it more over time. You get a little bit more picky about these things, but can you do great woodworking with a 2000 grit automotive sandpaper surface? Absolutely, yeah, you can.
Scary grip. Question here from Brick Builder DK. Just wondering what you think about the Incra Miter 5000. Didn't we do a whole guild video on that?
Yeah, I have a whole guild. I liked it enough to do a whole guild video on it. I love it. I've replaced my crosscut sleds. There was only one instance where I've said, man, I kind of wish I had a crosscut sled because it would have been better, was when I did the box joints on this one and made this jig. It would have been nice to have full fence support on both sides of the blade, but that is the first time in the last couple years of using the Incra 5000 that I ever thought, I kind of wish I had that other thing. But I still got the job done. It worked just fine. Whoa, we just lost connection.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know.
Oh, you know what?
What?
Guess what I didn't do?
Plug in the battery.
I didn't check the batteries. And I bet you that's what happened.
I still hear audio, no video.
That's exactly what happened.
Hi.
Good thing I didn't curse.
Crap.
Well, I could use the
recharge the battery.
I could use the camera on the computer. That would be
We're
awful.
like, what just happened?
It's always that. It's always that click.
Click.
I'm like, oh, okay. We're back, baby.
We're back.
Yeah, Jay usually changes my batteries in the morning, and Jay's out of town.
Blame it on Jay.
No, I'm blaming it on me. Jay does a good job of changing my batteries. You know what? Jason keeps me charged. Keeps me charged up all day long. I'm getting in a better mood now. I was not in the greatest mood this morning.
Yeah.
Just waking up at 4:30.
Yeah.
And then I got involved in this ridiculous drawer slide debate. That's look. Here's the thing. Why do we have to have these things? I guess the answer is the internet, right?
Yeah.
We get upset about stupid crap. And
let it go.
I find myself,
let it go.
Anytime I post a picture of a drawer with a side mount slide, it's like, it's blasphemy to some people. They are so on the undermount slide train that they can't understand why anyone would ever use a side mount slide. And I respect their desire to use undermount, and I understand its advantages, but it's like they just refuse to recognize that there might be reasons why someone would go side mount.
Right.
And it's so frustrating, and especially on Instagram, to have those arguments. That's a Facebook argument, right? That's not the kind of thing I usually do on Instagram. So I answered this guy, and I'm like, gave him my points, and I'm like, at the very end, I'm like, but most importantly, why am I defending my hardware choice to you? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Too much time.
So yeah, I kind of got off on a bad foot this morning.
Aww.
But everybody in the chat room is cheering me up.
Yeah.
Unless you start telling me to use undermount slides, then I hate you.
Then I'm gonna have to ban you.
Then I'm gonna let my battery drain and just go take a nap.
I could use a nap. I'm so sad because I was like, get ready to drink some coffee. I'm like, I'm out of coffee.
I'm ready to go get more coffee. Even though I had an XL, I'm ready. It's going to give me the poops, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, Bill Tiffin said, have you thought about getting the Incra box joint jig? I have it, Bill. It's fantastic. I'm not sure how well it would do on 22-inch case pieces like I've got here. I don't know, but I purposely did not want to use it on that project because I wanted to show people how to build their own jig. But I do have the iBox jig, and I have used it. In fact, I batched out all my cabinet drawers in the old Arizona shop. I put that project off for like a year. And then with the iBox jig, once I got it set up, I built the drawers in like a day because it was so fast once it was dialed in. So it's a great
the chat is telling you need to get Mark the puppet out.
Oh yeah, I should.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to give a review of side mount slides. I mean, it's like there's absolutely no reason you would want to use side mount slides, except for the fact that they're typically maybe 1/2, 1/3, 1/4 the price. The fact that they are easier to install. One guy says, yeah, but once you know how to install undermounts, they're pretty easy. And I'm like, you know what else is pretty easy once you know how to do it? Brain surgery, calculus.
Yes.
Like these are all, yes, everything is easier once you know how to do it, but most people would be intimidated by the set of instructions that come with undermount slides. And also the fact that undermount slides, they consume vertical space. And under a workbench with a cabinet like this, I'm very pressed for space. I got about 16 inches to play with, which means if I add, I've got 4 drawers, 1/4 inch each. If I lose a full inch, I'm actually going to lose a drawer. So there were lots of good justifications for side mount in this application. But the people, they're like reformed smokers or converted religious people who are just super excited to let you know how much they love that thing that they love, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm going to refer to the undermount slide people as. They're the converted.
Yes.
And they can't understand why anyone would ever do anything else.
It's going to be hilarious 5 years down the road when you convert to.
And then I will criticize and ridicule all of those crazy side mount morons. Gazankt votes for 16 inches to play with.
That was the show title.
I knew that would tickle his funny bone. I knew that would tickle Gazank's pickle.
Mike says spiral bits at the end of the stopped rabbet on the back of the barrister bookcase panels. I got quite a bit of tear out.
Oh, baby.
I was using an upcut spiral bit. Would a straight or downcut bit had been better?
In that case, if you're getting a lot of tear out in that cut, yeah, that's where the orientation plays into how that wood is behaving. So the orientation of the bit would be downward, and theoretically, I can't say for sure, I don't know, but theoretically, it should give you a cleaner cut on the edge.
Question from Adam. What's the best epoxy to use? For what?
Total Boat is pretty good, and West Systems. Both of those I've had luck with. I love this. Gary Hagen says, "Excuse me, Mark, have you heard of our Lord and Savior undermount slides?" Oh, that is fantastic. That's the title of the show.
Yeah. Jeff.
What's this vegan talk? Who's talking about vegans?
I don't know.
Are they the vegans of drawer slides? And then we talk about this vegans, Peloton riders, CrossFitters. These are all people you don't want to talk to.
And if you're any of these, we're just poking fun.
Meanwhile, I have good friends that used to be vegans.
And he rides Peloton.
I ride a Peloton.
Yep.
I would do CrossFit if I actually wanted to get in better shape, but I don't. I'm quite happy with my taco tummy. No, seriously though, I make fun of the things that I am also guilty of.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hypocritical, and that's just how I roll.
Yeah. Got a question here from Jeff. New 30 by 30 shop. Looking for a cyclone dust collector. Any suggestions?
Well, you say a cyclone dust collector. I assume you're talking about like a full-scale cyclone. I can just make recommendations based on what I have experience with. Oneida is fantastic. They actually have quite a few models, so you might be able to find maybe like the Dust Gorilla is just too big. You might be able to find one that's a little bit smaller. They got a really nice variety. They got some new products that just came out too. I don't know anything about them, but I keep getting emails. And then also Clearview Cyclones. Both make fantastic products. I suggest starting there. And again, just like that Lee Nielsen, Lee Valley plane debate, you can't go wrong with either one of them.
Yeah. Keith, huge fan. I've been binge watching yours and a few other videos since I first got into woodworking.
The comments are making me crack up. I like this. If you're a vegan CrossFitter who uses undermount slides, which one do you tell people about first? Which bumper sticker is the highest on the rear of your window in your car?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay,
that's okay.
We're getting off topic.
I know. Keith's telling you how much he's enjoying your videos.
Oh, good. Thank you, Keith.
He just started woodworking a year ago, still building up tools, and I'm wondering how critical jointers/planers are. Critical.
They're only critical if you want control over your incoming stock, right? And the way to get more control is to get rougher material. So you could save money and you can get pickier about what you buy and the actual size of those parts if you have the jointer and planer. To me, if you're really getting into fine woodworking, being picky about the boards, picky about grain, I actually think that a joiner and planer are pretty essential tools. You've got ways around it. You have techniques you can use to joint an edge. You have alternative techniques for planing. If you have to get one first, I say get the planer first. But generally speaking, you're not going to want to buy pre-milled lumber for the rest of your woodworking career. So I think it is a big step, but when you're ready to make that step and go to that next level, I think both of those tools help facilitate that.
Douglas. Mark, you're probably not the best person to ask.
So
I love this.
let's get to it then. Let's dig right in.
But can hard oil finishes be used on wood turn pen blanks while still on the lathe?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
A lot of the hard wax oils I think you're talking about, so basically your Rubio, your Osmo, your Odis, things like that can be kind of friction polished into the wood. One thing I find, and one thing I really like about them, especially if you are in that situation with a lathe, you can get so much friction and heat. By the time you wipe off the excess, they're kind of dry to the touch. And I know Rubio in particular is great about that. Once you buff Rubio off the surface, while it's not fully cured, it is dry. So stuff will not settle into that finish. So I would say, yeah, absolutely, especially if you're getting into what are being sold as the true hard wax oils. Their dry time, because you're really not leaving a lot of material on the surface, the dry time and dry to the touch time is really, really short, right? But each one is a little bit different, so look into it. But in spite of not being the best person to ask, I do think that you can get away with that.
I got a question here from Tim JB. What shop-made jigs have you used on each project more versus those that you have used less, i.e. project-specific jigs?
Well, a lot of times I make project-specific jigs for that project and don't reuse them, partly because, when you're teaching how to build a particular project, people want to see that jig being made from scratch. So I tend to not keep these things around a lot. But I do have a spline jig, a spline or key cutting jig that I made for the Essential Joinery book, and that is still up there, and I've used it a couple times. I'm going to use it on this project.
What was the jig that you got from Civ?
That was the iBox jig. I didn't make that.
Oh, gotcha.
You can't get much more useful, I think, to the average woodworker than a cross-cut sled. That is one that, if I still had one, I'd be using it all the time, but I have a purchased commercial solution with the Incra 5000 now. Those are the most frequently used. I don't really jig out like crazy like a lot of people do.
Jig out.
Get your jig on.
You jig it with it.
Yeah. So like you identified, I kind of build for project purposes, and then it winds up kind of falling over to the side. Also, bench jigs and things are very handy to have around like a shooting board. Those are things you kind of want to build once and not have to rebuild multiple times.
Have a super chat here from Mineral 1961. Just built a Cremona-inspired saw stop outfeed table.
See, that's your mistake.
But use your trick for aligning the side slides from your cabinet shop video.
Oh, great.
Worked great. Thanks.
Side slides, baby.
Side slides.
Side slides. Get your side slides over here. I want to be a side slide vendor at a baseball game.
There you go.
Side slides over here. Get your hot, fresh side slides.
You see a question that you want to?
I just see stuff that's making me laugh.
Okay, well, I can stop asking
It's not really a question. It really has no
just
value.
Commentary. You get to participate in the chat.
Well, Gazanked, this actually made me laugh, and it is valuable. He says, if you want to know how useful a planer is, just look over at Shannon, who has a hand tool only shop with a beautiful grizzly planer in it. So,
Did he get a planer?
Oh yeah, he's had one for years
I didn't know
now.
that.
He's got a beautiful 20-inch planer.
I thought he sold that off.
He got rid of everything, but then was like, this sucks. So he finally got a planer. Because the way he looked at it, he said this multiple times, like, I don't have anything to prove anymore. People know I can flatten a board by hand, so I can use a planer to get the job done.
That's true.
Fair enough.
Except for the brand new people that...
We're like, look at this jerk.
Look at this guy.
This is no Roy Underhill, I can tell you that much.
Will Hoover, what guild project would be a good one for a first project?
Shaker table.
Shop will be finished this weekend.
We always say the shaker table. It was actually the first project we did in the guild. Continues to be one of the best sellers because of its simplicity and the fact that it covers a lot of woodworking topics in one build: taper legs, mortise and tenon joints, making a panel glue up for the top, drawer construction, dovetails. I think we do both through and half blind dovetails. No, I don't remember. I know we do a couple different drawer varieties. I
know we do a skit.
There's a skit.
There's a skit of us.
Which has great value.
Oh my gosh.
That should cause it to be double the price. And it's fairly, speaking of price, it's fairly well priced as an entry level into the guild.
And I will tell you, November 29th and December 1st is when the shaker table goes on sale.
Yeah. Hey, you guys want to hear a great quote if I could find it really quickly? So, hold on. Facebook Messenger. Could Facebook take any longer to load?
Could it take any longer to load?
Okay. So Jeff Wyatt, dude that I talk to a lot online. He gave me a quote from Ben Franklin. Now, I will say, I have not researched this to confirm that this actually is a Benjamin Franklin quote, because a lot of quotes, as you know, people get misquoted or they get attributed to someone that's just convenient for a meme. But anyway, he says this is what the guild is to him. And I was like, you know what? I want to put this on the guild homepage because it really means something.
So we should probably research and make sure
just to make sure before we
attribute it to the right person.
But get this, I love this. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. How great is that?
I like
and that truly does get to the heart of woodworking classes, woodworking community, and instruction. And what we try to do in the guild is to not just give people projects, plans, a set of videos. We try to bring them into the fold, give them a venue where they can ask their instructor questions, give them the most service possible in this kind of online venue. And it is true. When you're truly involved in something, you're getting your hands dirty, you will learn.
Sometimes we try to involve guild members too much, and they'll unsubscribe from my newsletter and say I send too many emails.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit, Nicole.
Sorry.
You know, you're getting up in their business a little too much.
Don't need to do that.
Hey, look, people unsubscribe for so many reasons.
I know.
You just never know.
I know.
I know
because they tell me I send too many emails.
Just for fun, I like to subscribe to emails and then report it as spam when the first one comes in.
That happens to us. It happens.
People are finicky.
It really bothers me.
There's a lot of people in the world, Nicole.
Yes.
Most of them are jerks.
It's okay.
Not these people.
Not these people.
All
Not
those
you.
other people.
Not you watching
you know what
us.
I'm saying? You guys know what I'm talking
Keith White wants to know, did you start as a hobbyist? And if so, how did you transition to what you are doing now?
Well,
that's a story,
huh?
You should read our About page.
Go to the About page. I've also got a couple of interviews. This is a common question that gets asked if I do an interview on someone else's podcast.
Are those interviews on the About page?
I usually link to most of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how up to date it is.
Here's Made for Profit is on there.
That was the last one. I got to put the dad interview on there too.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was.
But you'll find I probably mention it multiple times in these interviews. But I will give you the nutshell version. I did start as a hobbyist when I was working in biotech. Woodworking was my pastime that kind of helped me stay sane. Nicole and I were very newly married at the time, and spending lots of time in the garage was not conducive to a good new marriage. So Nicole started to notice my misplaced passion here, and I was losing my passion for science while my passion for woodworking was just off the charts. We didn't have kids at the time, and she had made a suggestion about possibly, at this point I had done a few jobs for like co-workers, friends of the family, stuff like that. So my skills and my confidence in actually selling things was growing. But she made the suggestion that maybe I should quit my job and start to go into furniture business. And I was like, girl, you must be crazy. Girl, you crazy.
I was like, no.
Yeah, and then I had a lot of dreams about riding motorcycles, which was really weird. It's serious. When I started to actually digest the idea that I might be able to leave my 9-to-5 job, I have no desire to ride a motorcycle, none whatsoever. My father got into a accident when he was younger on his motorcycle, broke his femur, and I remember when he had the bar taken out and they kept the bar in the living room. It was a weird thing. So I seriously have zero desire to get on a two-wheeled vehicle that is not a bicycle. And I would have a recurring dream about being on a motorcycle. And obviously, you know, the interpretation of that is like this newfound freedom that I was going to have with this change in career. But yeah, Nicole kept pushing me. I kept saying no. And eventually I was like, all right, look, we don't have much to lose here. I could always go back to science if I need to. She thankfully had a really good paying job that could handle the mortgage, and we went for it. So that's kind of how it all started.
Kids, so
yeah, we didn't have kids, so
we were risk takers.
We could take those risks. But there's another portion of the story that goes from that point to the Wood Whisperer. But check out those interviews, and that'll give you that info. I put
the link. It's thewoodwhisperer.com/about. And somebody, Vincent, just said, "How do I get the emails?" Do you really want an email? I'll send you an email.
We will give you some emails.
I will give you an emael.
We're going to give you some email. So much email, it's going to hurt.
And you're going to say, unsubscribe, too many emails.
Cool.
So if you sign up for every single one, I send out a weekly guild newsletter that summarizes what Mark or Matt or whoever the instructor is doing that week. And I pull member projects that are shared in the Facebook group to kind of highlight some of my favorites. You can sign up at thewoodwhisperer.com just go to thewoodwhisperer.com and click subscribe in the top. It's a newsletter.
It's a funny looking page, huh?
Yeah, it's a funny looking. So you just say, I want this.
Glenn says, Sugar Mama helps. Look, behind every successful male woodworker is a wife with a good job. That's is that a saying that we have? Let's make it a saying if it's not. Or actually, the saying is usually the best way to make $1 million as a woodworker is to start with $2 million.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I've heard that one before.
Yeah, that's an old one.
We just got a super chat, and I'm refreshing it.
Chris wants to know if I was passing people using undermount slides on the highway when I was on my motorcycle. You know, I don't think at that time I even knew what an undermount slide was.
Yeah.
I was still going, what are these dovetail things? I'm going to watch Rob Kosman on this VHS tape.
Did he have VHS tape?
I had a couple VHS tapes, yeah. Remember that dude that I met in Marietta?
Yeah.
And he gave me the DVDs from Mark Adams.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And I very quickly pirated those, so I had copies. And I think he had a couple VHS tapes, too.
We since bought them.
No, we didn't. When I did my presentation at Mark Adams, you would have loved this. So they... when they have multiple teachers there, they do a presentation night. I totally spaced. I forgot that I even had this thing. So I'm like, Nicole, I was supposed to do this presentation. So I needed all these images to do a slideshow. But in the beginning of it, I wanted to talk about how important Mark Adams was to my growth as a woodworker. And that one of the first sets of instructional content I ever saw were my pirated copies of Mark's work. And the place was just like, did he just say that? And I'm like... And so it was a funny moment at the school.
Yeah, you're a jerk.
Look, I'm an honest jerk, though.
Yes. Hey, Luther Woodworks wants to know, when are you going to do the next episode of WoodTalk? He's behind.
What's WoodTalk? Matt asked me yesterday. He said, so do we have a date? I said, nope, not yet. We're going to get a date on the calendar. I got a couple things with Woodworkers Fighting Cancer right now.
Oh, yeah.
And a guild project going on. Matt finally finished his project, and we've got a new guild project with the Philip Morley table coming in November. There's just a lot going on that we want to get accomplished before December.
Hey, speaking of Woodworkers Fighting Cancer, we, on the auctions, hit our goal.
Woot!
Woot! Thank you, everybody. The auctions are closing next week, I think. Yeah, next week.
Cool.
So once that's done, and I'm getting submissions on Woodworkers Fighting Cancer projects. So I'm slowly getting those posted on the main site, which is at woodworkersfightingcancer.com. So if you still want to participate and build and submit your photo, you still can.
Cool.
It's a pretty easy project. Got a question here from, that's my chat, sorry.
Chewy asked if, have the floor mats really helped your back? They have. I used to have fairly chronic back discomfort. And also just feet discomfort, right? Like the arches of my feet.
Now that you mention that.
I would try work boots and try all different things to deal with the concrete floor. And for years now, since I had this flooring installed pretty much wall to wall, I have not had to worry about my footwear. I could even wear my Chuck Taylors if I want to, my cons. I could wear regular running shoes. I could wear work boots, and it's all kind of the same. I don't even think about my feet anymore. It's just a non-issue. I could have the longest, 12-hour day in the shop, and my feet don't hurt at all. My back doesn't hurt either, but I think
don't hurt me now.
My lower back issues are more related to exercising a lot more and just getting the core strength up to support my lower back as opposed to simply not agitating it.
And I've been meaning to do this. So you can also donate just directly to the cancer charity, which is Cancer Research Institute. There's a link on the website. But I want to say thank you to Joshua Beckerman, Logan, how do you say, Liskovic?
Yeah.
Robert Jones, Sarah Gray, and Gordon White. They've all donated to the charity, just straight to it, which you can do. So thank you to all of them that have done that so far.
There you go.
Got a question here from Anthony. On Wednesday, I milled enough walnut for the sides of 2 hang chairs. Life happened, and now I won't be able to touch them again until Monday. Any suggestions for stabilizing it over the weekend?
Well, first, don't do that. Especially in the
Well,
hang.
that doesn't help him.
The hang chair has so many phases
Yeah.
in it. And I'm going to be dealing with this because I have two
That's
partially
right.
assembled and
Yeah.
partially finished hang chairs sitting over against the lathe that I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to work on them again. And I am terrified because I did not get that back to side joint glued up yet. And those are some big, big miters. So hopefully they'll go together. You know, the only thing I could suggest is something that has worked for me in the past with panels. It could be just BS and voodoo, but it seemed to work really well.
Saran wrap, right?
Kind of. It's the, not shrink wrap, but stretch wrap.
Stretch wrap.
The kind of stuff you use when you're moving, right? So you just get that stuff that's on a roll and wrap everything up, roll it. You're basically closing it off from any
What's it
changes in humidity. Stretch wrap.
Stretch wrap.
I
Oh, look
believe.
at that. Yeah. For moving. Well, there it is.
Yeah, so I've
Is it
used that
that
stuff.
stuff? Or the greens?
Well, a lot of times you get the small ones with the handle. You can get them from Home Depot,
Yeah.
Lowe's. Any home center will have them. But I've used those on panels when I knew I had to leave them for a couple of weeks. And there were solid wood panels that had already been milled to size, and I had a similar problem. I had no choice but to leave the project in that state. Normally, I know I would have come back to putting a straight edge on there and seeing, a 16th to an 1/8 inch gap in the middle because of a cup, and it did not happen. And basically, putting all the pieces together, it helped keep them flat. It helped block it off from any environmental changes, and kind of kept it in this like stasis mode. That's my theory, and it worked for me that one time. I can't say it's going to be a foolproof method, but that would be at least something to do to help. One of my favorite phrases, stack the cards in your favor.
Stack the cards in your favor. I just added to our Amazon, so amazon.com/shop/the Wood Whisperer underneath Friday Live. I just added some of that shrink wrap.
Will has a good point. He says the back issues are actually from carrying Cremona. when Cremona comes to my shop, it's a little bit like a Master Blaster situation. I have just this little backpack.
You so wanted to do that with Mateo as a Halloween.
I did, I know. But it's better to do it with Cremona.
Is that me or you? That's you.
So I have this backpack. Oh, I've been attacked.
Oh, stop it.
Oh, sorry.
Get out of here.
Jason always laughs because he's like, you're arguing with like a 12-year-old, right?
You're right.
It's like, yes, I am, and I will win. Anyway, what was I talking about?
I don't know.
Yes, I like it's basically just a backpack with holes cut in it, so Matt can put his legs through it, and I just hang him on my back.
There you go.
It's not good for the back, but people like to see it.
We have a super chat here from David Murphy. He said, just because y'all are awesome. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
awesome.
that.
I like your avatar. It's Halloweeny.
Cremona in a baby Bjorn. Wrap him up. No, my little baby.
Got a question here from John Boras. Good morning. I've been a big fan over the years, and you're the first source I turn to with woodworker questions. So I have recently, or I've noticed in an older video that you used a Jessam router table. Please let me know if you've been happy with that setup or if there's another option you prefer. I have built a small benchtop table, and now I'm looking to either build another better one or simply buy one. I'm on a budget, but the $400 for Jessam seems reasonable. Any thoughts? Thanks.
Yeah, Jessam is great. I love that router table. It did just fine. I wanted to upgrade to a more adjustable fence system, so I went with an Incra setup. But I have no complaints. The Jessam performed quite well. The Incra lift that's in here is, I believe, a rebranded Jessam Master Lift 2. So if that goes to show you about the quality, Jessam is right up there with the quality if Incra wants to use them for their lifts. So nothing wrong with Jessam.
So if you're not familiar, when you're here live, you can actually submit show titles for this recording. And somebody, Robert Burks, submitted Nicole Makes the Money. And Robert, you misspelled my name.
Nicole. A lot of people do that.
Thank you. It's
How many people
Your
actually-
dad does it all the time.
How many people actually have the H in their name? I thought that would be the more unusual spelling for Nicole.
That's what I thought too, but I don't know.
I mean, I got a Nicole in our family
I know there's
as well. That's Nicole.
I sometimes see it with a K even, like Nicole.
That's just crazy talk. What are people thinking? All right, what else we got?
Let's
Anything
see.
else? What's with the foreign characters?
I'm just deleting them.
Okay.
It's gone. Keith White wants to know, so what project would you recommend for a beginner woodworker that typically sells well? Trying to prove to my wife and myself that this could be a possible income stream.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. Google it, or I believe, what's his name? Make Something.
Make Something.
David Picciuto has a video where he talks about
Craft
things that sell well. Talk to people who actually do this. I know David, I don't know if he still does it now, but even as recently as last year, I remember him doing something, having a stand at a craft show. So there are people who do this all the time who can give you much, much better answers. I have zero perspective on what sells. I'd go there with this tool chest and be like, how come no one's buying this? It's only $5,000.
Yeah, right.
I mean, even when we first started the business, we moved to Arizona, we had contemplated doing the craft show. And I just found it really hard to build the stuff that I wanted to build that would be at a price range that would sell in that environment. You know, people aren't going there, at least at that time.
Right.
People weren't going to this little swap and shop thing to buy.
It was a flea market. It was an outdoor flea market.
$150 cutting board. You know, like that, it would have been the wrong audience for that. So again, I'm not the best person to ask.
Stephen May says, when you started woodworking, how did you balance wanting to do a project and not having the right tool at hand and finally building a collection without going broke?
You just have to prioritize. I mean, there's times where I really struggled. I had problems getting square ends on plywood panels early on. And a lot of the projects I was getting and jobs I was getting, they were big cabinets. And not being able to square them up and just constantly being frustrated by that was a hindrance. So the justification made, when I did a little math in my head, we call it Mark math, and I would go to Nicole with my Mark math and spreadsheet, and I would say, if I get this MFT with the Festool track saw, yes, it costs this much money, but that means that I'll be able to get this and this job, which I currently have waiting for me. I will get them done faster, and the results will be better, which means I might get another job in the future. So I kind of did a little bit of math and decided that this investment was smart because it would either save me time or ensure potential jobs in the future. That's just an investment in your future. So I think whenever you have to consider a tool upgrade, first of all, can you get around it? Is there some way to get around it? What do you have to do to get around it? And would this thing solve some serious problems that you could make your money back in a fairly short amount of time? I think a good business decision is always to say yes when it truly can make a bottom line, bottom dollar difference. If it can, go for it. If you're still kind of unsure and you have workarounds, go with the workarounds until you absolutely must upgrade.
So one of the things, Robert, thank you for correcting my name. There was something on a forum one time. Remember when I told you somebody had I worked in television? Do you remember this? There was a rumor going, they were trying to figure out what our deal.
You worked in television?
I was working.
Sounds like a Reddit conversation.
It was. I think it was.
Was it the
or
one
Google?
That
it was a Google groups or something.
Yeah. It was the one where they
random.
It was titled something, "The Money Whisperer."
Yes.
And everyone was giving me crap, and we're talking 2008, maybe.
Yeah.
Giving me crap for having sponsors, and I'm like, if I could have known the future at that time to be like, you guys think I'm bad with my advertising. Oh, baby, wait till you see what's coming.
And reading it cracked me up because
somebody on our income, right?
Well, not even that. It was somebody was talking as if they knew exactly what our situation was.
Yeah, they lived in our hometowns and
television. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, it's because Nicole works in television.
Yes.
I don't work in television, but I watch a lot of it.
I do. At the time I did.
What movie?
Ooh. I don't know.
Phil.
I don't remember.
The chat room, someone will know.
Yeah. Spaceballs?
Nope. If someone gets it in the chat room, they get the free project.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's going to be one of those days.
Oh, it's one of those days.
Oh, do you work in television? No, but I watch a lot of it.
Jamie wants to know, are you, what? RU's lacquer has a finish on my wood turning lately and have been getting white marks on the top of the lacquer as a dry can. I'm reading exactly how, Jamie.
I don't know.
Can you help me so it doesn't do that? Basically, white marks on lacquer.
I might need to see it. A lot of times white marks can be moisture. So depending on the humidity and the dry time and things like that, you may need to add a retarder to the finish to help prevent that. But I gotta see it.
Yeah. Kevin G. Mark, is there a recommended depth for a dado? Worried I'm going to go too deep using a 4x4?
4/4?
4/4.
You know, dados don't have to be as deep as you think. And I've always kind of been inclined to make to fall on the side of a shallower dado, leaving more meat on the board. I believe I recall a video, and maybe it was one of the wood magazines. Excuse me.
Michael Lay. Got it. Wayne's World.
Yes, Wayne's World. Correct.
Michael, or Matthew,
Lay.
Matthew, email me, Nicole@thewoodwhisperer.com.
There
and
you
I'll
go.
get you set up.
So yeah, there was a that was at the TV show with Noah's Arcade. It was the wife when they're on the set, and she said a few things, and Rob Lowe says, "So you work in TV?" And she's like, "Oh no, but I watch a lot of it."
Excellent.
Yeah, it's good. How was I saying?
I don't know. Dados.
Okay, so I remember this test actually looking at different dado depths and going as shallow as 1/8 of an inch versus 1/4 versus 1/2 versus like 3/8, and that they showed that the 1/8 inch dado was comparably strong, so that if you don't want to go too deep and you want to maintain structural integrity of your case, you don't have to go all that deep. You can get away with as little as 1/8 of an inch if it's a well-cut dado and a well-sized dado. So if you are afraid of going too deep, back off. Don't go as deep.
Back off.
Back off, sucker. Ava has really started to own sucker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I gave her breakfast this morning, and I handed her the bowl of cereal. Like, here you go. You want to sit at the table? And she said something like, "Yes, sucker."
What?
And no, and she said it exactly like that, sucker.
Who
And I'm like,
taught
where
her
are you
that?
getting this sucker from? And I don't
Yeah.
think you should be saying this. But it was adorable and hilarious, but something I didn't want to encourage.
No, don't encourage that.
Sucker?
Maybe it's Mateo that's
Teaching her how to say
teaching her.
sucker?
Yeah, it's
Be,
possible.
Could be me for all I know.
Yeah.
Keith says I'm his spirit animal. Woodworking, video games, comics. Yeah. It's the good stuff, Keith. All the stuff the cool people are into. It's party time. Excellent.
Jason is building a computer desk with a walnut top. What would you suggest for a finish that's not shiny but can withstand issues from pens, pencils, and such?
Well, something
I like
matte.
that icon, Jason.
Yeah. Looks like me when I'm gaming online. Something with a matte finish. I mean, you can go with a film finish. My tests with some wiping varnishes, putting on a fairly thick coat, showed me that none of the standard available finishes that we have can resist pen and pencil marks and divots. It's too much. It's a little piece of metal that someone is pushing, especially if they write hard. You will get those lines in there. It's really coming down to, can the wood withstand denting? So walnut is a pretty durable wood. I think you're going to be fairly happy with that. But you still may see some pencil and pen marks. Putting on a film finish might help, some of that not happen, but it still might, and that's the problem with this stuff. So look at my wiping varnish finish shootout that I did, and you'll see that every single one of the wiping varnishes and polys that I used, they all show pen marks when written upon. So it's just kind of nature of the beast. But the harder and denser the species you use, the better chance you have of something that isn't going to dent. Use something soft, no matter what you use as the finish, it's still going to dent. So yeah, just go with a matte formulation of one of those on top of walnut. It should be pretty good, but I don't think it's going to be perfect.
Pretty good.
And if you go with a non-film forming finish, there's even less protection there, like the hard wax oils.
Okay. Jay said, "Hi, Mark and Nicole. I'm getting ready to build a sit-stand desk. Thinking about buying the frame and building the top. Have you ever made one, or do you know homemade options for the legs?"
Nope.
And
no.
No, sorry.
I do get questions periodically about it, but I've never had a need or interest in a convertible desk like that, so I don't have any information for you.
Yeah, this is a long one, Harry. Yeah, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, we should.
Because I need more coffee. You want to go get some coffee?
Okay.
Let's go get some coffee. But Binga shouldn't show pen marks.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to that level of hardness, who was it? Someone just asked me a question about desktop, and they were considering something like eBay because they absolutely don't want to see any dents or anything.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're in that category of finishes. You hear that?
I did. What is going on with your stomach?
That was my lower intestine
I was like,
bubbling.
I'm like, what?
You know what that means? We're about 5 seconds from liftoff. So let's count down, everyone.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so Bubinga, Jatoba, Brazilian cherry, woods along those lines, those exotics that are really, really hard, those are going to be a lot less prone just because they're higher on that Jenga scale. So a lot less prone to denting, grooving, and things like that.
All right, so let's, we've already given out the project.
Brett is counting down. 5, 4.
So if you want to vote on any of the show titles, you can go over to woodwhisperoffcuts.showbot.tv. We've only gotten 1 vote so far. We got a few submissions.
Yep.
Nicole makes the money.
Taco tummy.
Taco tummy.
I like that one. Vegan takes 16 inches. Whoa.
Anatomy of a fart.
Fart countdown. Should be a good one.
Getting jiggy with it.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That's old. I
I
don't
don't
like
know. I like it. We talked about jigs.
it. Okay.
All right.
So we're done?
So which one do you want to pick a show
We
title
already-
now?
Oh, a show title?
Yeah.
No, we'll pick it later.
Okay, we'll pick it later. You never know.
And remember,
Yes.
today is the last day for the under workbench cabinet. Get in on that for the pre-order pricing. And then this weekend, it's all about the bookshelves.
Yep.
If you want to get those on sale, 20% off
All about the
in the guild.
bookshelves.
Okay?
Yay.
I think that's it. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And I guess we'll see you later on. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace out.